Joel. Today we're talking with Joel Barolsky, one of the teaching fellows on the Master of Legal Business. Joel has taken on two subjects, the first of which was delivered in February, and the second of which is in fact starting next month in August. Joel is a specialist in clients and clients' buying behavior and how to influence that buying behavior on the part of lawyers and other professionals in law firms. Joel, let's start with, does everybody in a law firm need to be a rainmaker?
Look, there clearly are people who are naturally gifted at winning clients and winning new business and developing relationships. My view is actually at a senior level, if you reach a partner level within a law firm, I think there's a key aspect and expectation of that role as a person who can build a practice and sustain a practice. Now, there's different ways to do that, and there's some practices where you might have, for example, you might be a workers' compensation insurance lawyer, and you have one client who works on a sort of a 4-year contract or tender arrangement or panel arrangement, and really the sort of rainmaking in that context is very much focused on meeting the client's immediate expectations on each matter and each service, maintaining the relationship, dealing with any issues, and ensuring the firm gets reappointed at some later stage. So the focus is almost, it's mostly on the service delivery, but it's still underlying that service delivery is the intention of building a long-term relationship and getting reappointed at some time down the future. You go to other practitioners, and you might have a litigator who has a very transactional practice, and one client comes and goes, and clients hopefully will never see them again. So they may not have a sort of a regular flow of the same clients, but they most certainly would have a regular flow of of referrers and people who refer them work. And so the role is very much rainmaking by the referrers. So my view is that actually everyone in a senior role has a rainmaking responsibility. Clearly the roles vary, but also people's skills vary, or capability. And some people have this image of a rainmaker as this, outstanding networker or brilliant presenter at conferences, or a very sort of extroverted person who walks into a room and can network with 50 people at once, and there's lots of evidence to show that yes, that is one way to do it, but there are lots of other ways, and some of the most successful rainmakers I know are quite introverted and quite subdued in their approach, but they play to their strengths. They might be absolute gurus in their field, and they publish widely, and they speak at conferences in very considered ways, and people come to them because they're seen as notable experts in the field, and they make rain through that expertise. So there isn't one way to do it, but I think in the answering your question, I think at a senior level, I think it's becoming more and more the expectation of people at a partner level that they do build a successful practice, and a practice that not only supports them, but their team, and actually builds to the point that it creates future opportunities for others within the firm. So
Joel, rainmakers seem to me to, while there are different styles, as you very eloquently describe, there are some ingredients in common: authenticity, authority in an area of law, interpersonal skills, and self-confidence that I can do this. In the way I project myself and the way I engage with existing clients or prospective clients. Yes. On the self-confidence side, what do you see as the main ways of building your self-image and having the get up and go to get out?
Look, it's quite a deep question at one level, and actually there's quite a lot of research that shows that many senior partners and professionals in law firms and in other firms are actually relatively insecure, actually. They're sort of insecure overachievers. And in a sense, they've their drive to achieve and a drive to perform in the eyes of their peers and in others actually pushes them beyond that insecurity. They sort of overcome those inherent sort of weaknesses and insecurities. So sometimes, at deep down, some of those key rainmakers aren't necessarily, super confident, but have some anxiety about some of them. What they have, what they call, is impostor syndrome. They're sort of going to get caught out as not someone who's an absolute expert, and they sort of work terribly hard to ensure they're never caught out, and then sort of present in a very confident way. But deep down, it's based on a sense of that they're actually not really that good.
Joel, just taking another angle on this, what you're describing here is where a senior lawyer is expected to be both a salesperson, a rainmaker, and a producer.
Yeah.
Whereas in most other industries, there's a clear separation between those who sell and those who make the service, the product. Do you see any trend in legal services, private law firms of any size, towards separation into salespeople and pure producers?
This challenge, or the producer-manager dilemma, which is often expounded and discussed, goes in cycles, in my sense. There are times where you see firms who've sort of quite clearly allocated roles to particular sales roles to particular people. So, for example, I believe DLA in the US hired in a number of former senior in-house lawyers, general counsel and other in-house lawyers, to become their dedicated sales force, because the idea was, well, those in-house people would relate well to their clients because they'd been in those positions before, and they could be very adept at building relationships with people that who have similar roles. So and those roles were seen as almost full-time, as I understood it, account managers or salespeople. Tips for becoming a rainmaker, well, to be honest, really depends on the style and preference for rainmaking. So if your preference is around networking and building a wide set of contacts with influential decision makers and influencers, clearly the tips and the prospects and approach would align with that particular profile. But there are some couple of tips relating to that. The first is actually to role model or try and stay close to someone who has a similar style to you. So if you can actually work with someone or follow or observe or go and meet clients with another practitioner who has a similar personality and style and approach to rainmaking, that you think, well, actually I can do that, or they seem to have similar personality traits to me, it actually, seeing someone in action, seeing someone doing it and observing them is incredibly powerful. And if they allow you into the loop and happy to include you in their meetings and interactions, or even having an occasional coffee, often those people can be incredibly helpful and insightful to give you some feedback if they do participate with you, but also just giving you general tips and tools that feels useful to you, because they have a style that is congruent with your own strengths and weaknesses. So that's the first sort of key tip. The second sort of key tip, and I think it traverses all rainmaker types, is that you need to develop your own sort of system, and it's a system for creating awareness amongst your target clients, for following up, for generating opportunities, for converting those opportunities and tracking and measuring, and then repeating. And there's some interesting research that amongst rainmakers done by a chap, Ford Harding, and one of the common characteristics, regardless of how they made rain, was this idea of being a bit systematic. And some had very detailed computer spreadsheets and pipeline systems, using Salesforce or other quite sophisticated CRM software. And others actually just had a really good PA that would help them to keep on top of their contacts and their prospects and following up particular matters. And so the system, the actual method of the system or the technology varied widely. Some was very high tech, some was very high touch, some was formal, some was informal, but all the Rainmakers had a system, and they had a system that worked for them, and they followed that system and were systematic. And a key part of rainmaking is discipline. And so having a system and being disciplined in using that system is absolutely fundamental. And, as I said before, it doesn't have to be one particular system, but have one that works for you and follow through and keep it active. And the third key tip for rainmaking is really is understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, and then having an approach to build to your strength or leverage your strengths, and to do. If you play to your strengths, it just feels a bit easier. It feels more comfortable. It feels more authentic. But you can only do that if you really understand what your strengths are, but also be open to what your weaknesses are, and then finding practical ways to overcome a weakness. So if you have a weakness in regard to, initiating a conversation or setting up meetings well, perhaps get someone else in your firm to help set up those meetings, or engage a lead generating organization to do those first inquiries. So have a practical approach to address those particular weaknesses through another person or another system or another, learning a new skill, but being active in addressing those key weaknesses. But at the core is playing to strengths. This all sounds incredibly obvious, but really when it comes down to it, you see the successful rainmakers are those that truly play to those strengths, find ways to overcome or mitigate their weaknesses, that are disciplined in their approach that they follow, and have a recognition of those others in their orbits that make rain in a similar way, and try and learn from them as much as possible. A couple of months ago, I ran the first course as part of the Masters of Legal Business, and I was struck by the seniority and diversity of the audience, or the class that I had. I had about 26, 27 students in that class, but they ranged from senior practitioners in big and small firms, in-house, as well as people in support roles like in marketing and business development. But the real strength of the course came from the diversity of backgrounds and perspectives. So when we discussed a case study, a marketing case study or marketing problem, it was wonderful to hear perspectives from someone like Justin Moses, former senior in-house lawyer at Westpac, to hear the client perspective. It was wonderful to hear from the head of marketing and business development at one of the tier 1 firms to bring the professional BD and marketing perspective, and then we would hear from one of the senior partners, the deputy managing partner from Piper Alderman, talking about from a partner perspective what the challenges were. So we might discuss one particular problem, but the beauty of the course is in that diversity of thought, the diversity of experience, and learning from each other in approaching a particular problem. And there's so much to be gained from not just studying the core content, but in actually that interaction with others who bring different perspectives and open one's mind.